All right. A very good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this DDD dashboard webinar, where we will be speaking about root cause analysis and the School Achievement Report. The School Achievement Report is a report that we've covered in depth, along with how to filter and get great insights from this report. We're bringing it back today only to facilitate a discussion on how to take some of the data we find in reports like school achievement reports and to really find out and dig deep to find out what are the reasons we're seeing some of the problems and the issues in curriculum or in attendance or whatever the report is showing us. And we're going to be speaking about a method known as the root cause analysis, or sometimes known as the fishbone method, and how that can allow us to think very deeply about a problem and then put together an action plan that will minimize the chance of that problem appearing again. My name is Musa Simela, and I'm not alone today. I'm joined by IK, and while I will be facilitating, he'll be taking care of our questions. It's good to have him here. But before we get started, let's just have a look at the normal guidelines to ensure that you have a very good session today with our webinar. All right, with those guidelines out of the way, let us now have a look at the objectives that we have for the session. And the first objective there is to understand how to analyze the school or the subject performance in that school. Secondly, to investigate the number of learners that are failing a particular subject. Number 3, gain insights into the data available on the DDD Dashboard Excel downloadable report and how to interpret it. So far, nothing new, very similar to the previous session we've heard in the Learner Achievement Report. But the fourth objective, develop a plan of action based on identified root causes, is where we change gears a little bit, and we're looking forward to that piece. All right, with our objectives out of the way, we've invited circuit management or officials. We've invited officials in the curriculum space, and we've also invited officials who are in the school level. The reason we've had such a nice mix today is because this report is available to all of us, the School Achievement Report. And as you can see here, all the way from provincial level, all the way down to school level, this report is available. Of course, if you're at a higher level than school level, you will not just see, if you're at a school level, you'll just see your school along with the subjects and their achievements. But if you're above the school level, you will see all the schools that are within your area of influence. So if you're at a second level, you'll be able to see all the schools in your circuit, right? And if I could just take the time to simplify this report for us, just think of it as a report having the list of the schools if you're at above school level, and then it will have all the grades, and then it will have all the subjects, and it will have marks for all of those subjects. And that's, if you understand it that way, that's the best way to break this report up. And if you're in a school level, instead of having schools, you will just have your school, but you will have the grades, and you will also have the subjects that are linked to each grade and the mark for each of them. So this allows us to very quickly see in which grade for which subject do we need to pay attention to, right? And of course, this report is a report that's on our dashboard, the DDD dashboard. Underneath the tab called Reports, if you click on that, you will find yourself in a screen very similar to this one. And as you can see there, a whole list of reports are there, some of which we have covered in the session, in this webinar. And the one that we're speaking to about is the second one under Learner Achievement, which is the School Achievement Report. If you click that report, the next thing that will happen is this perimeter box will appear. And this just allows us to, if I can use an informal term, to flavor our report. Our report can have a number of things added or subtracted from it. The question is, what do we want to see? So first of all, we'll be able to choose whether we want to see a provincial or a school level of this report, what grades we want included, and how we want the achievement to be represented. And of course, the one that I'm going to be showing us today, I chose it to be showing from a school level so that we see all the schools instead of it summarizing all the schools and having those marks as an aggregate. And that's how I prefer we look at the report, so then we can take those results and focus in on the school. The report that I'm going to show, I've selected the FET phase from grade 10 to grade 12. But if you are in a different phase, or even if you're interested in all the grades, you are more than welcome to do that. But the one that I've chosen, I went to include grades from, and I said grade 10. And the way it says until, I said grade 12. And just a small discussion around the report marks there. So you can either look at this using report marks, or you can see it using the exam test mark, which is just a paper that the learner is probably engaging with alone, whether it be an exam or a class test or whatever we link as a common test in SASAMs. We can choose to either use to see that, or we can decide the way that I've done it to see all of the marks for that term. If you click on apply, then the report will download. But if the report is too big or has a lot of data, particularly if you're printing it from above school level, what will happen is an email will be sent to the email address that you registered on your dashboard with, and then you can then download it from then on. But typically, it will just download here at the bottom left of the screen. Now that we know how to download the report, let's talk a little bit about the information that we will see in this report. As you can see here from my slide, the report will carry with it, like I said, different columns. And here's some columns, not all the columns, but the columns that I've highlighted because they're going to be important in our decision to filter. The first, the first, description there, or the first label or the first column name is the school, which is of course going to talk to us about the school name. We've got the grade here, and of course the grades that are going to be included are the grades that we have included from the previous page. So whatever grades that I said I wanted to see, these are the grades that are going to be available. Then there's a column that shows us which phase is the subject or the grade you're looking at. Is it foundation phase, intermediate phase, senior FET? There's the description, and here is where I want us to make a little bit of a note here, because description means the subject. So the column that says description is actually talking to us about the subject, right? Then you've got the levels. You've got the level of achievement, and if you've been with us, we've been showing the PowerPoint slide with all the levels in there, but basically based on the mark that the learner has achieved, that's the level that they're going to find themselves in. 0 to 30 being 1, 30 to, I think, 40 is level 2, so on and so forth, going up all the way to level 7, bracketing the learners into or bracketing the results into a level, which I'm sure this is something we all in this room are familiar with. Then more importantly, and I think we want to pay attention to this because this is going to be part of our problem statement that we're going to solve when we're talking about the root cause analysis, is the pass percentage. And what the pass percentage is talking to us about is in the subject that we're looking at, in the grade. So in the school, in the grade, in the subject that we're looking at, how many learners were able to pass. So that's it. So that's the pass percentage. So if there's 10 learners in the school and 5 learners have passed, we know that's 50%. So that's what this pass percentage is speaking to. Then there's a percentage above 50%, and this is more of a quality question. Here we're speaking to those learners that have been able to achieve a pass percentage above 50%. So it will tell us, look, here's the percentage, or here's the number of learners who are able to produce an above 50%, and that talks to us to quality, and we can use that as a goal to say, look, this is our goal as a school, to have more learners in this subject passing above 50%. Maybe we have 25% of learners passing above 50%, and the goal can be 30%. That will be an example there. And then we've got the average percentage, which is the average symbol or the average mark that learners are seeing for the particular subject, right? So with that in mind, colleagues, now that we know what we are going to find in the report, let me now show you what the report looks like if you're downloading it from a school level. And as you can see, it's an Excel downloadable report. Just going to zoom in there so we can pay some attention to some of the factors that are in there. As you can see, it puts the first couple of columns are putting the schools in a context from province, district to circuit. Then you've got the year that this report has been printed in. Then you've got the grades here. Of course, here, as you can see on mine, you're seeing grade 12 all the way down. But as you continue, if I print it on FET, you'll also start seeing grade 11 and grade 10. And then from then on, after that grade is tied to a phase, we then start seeing the subjects for all of the grades, right? And then the next part there, we see the learner enrollment. And all that means is the number of learners that are taking part in the subject. For example, if I can just pick on mathematics here, we can see here there's 58 learners that are doing the subject. And here to the far right, I can see there's 58 who wrote, meaning that our data, this is actually speaking to the quality of the data. We had 58 learners registering at the beginning of the term. And by the time assessments were rolled out, we had 58 who are able to write. So that speaks to reliable data. And then next to that, there's now the number of learners. If I pick on mathematics again, you see here for mathematics, out of the 58 learners, 36 of those learners were able to pass, right? So this is already talking to me about the nature of the achievement in the school. And then like the levels that I spoke about, we can see here we've got a majority of the learners here in the lowest level, which is an outright fail. 22 of them are there. Then we have some learners that have passed but are very close to the borderline pass. That's 10 learners having a level 2 pass. Then we have 6 learners at level 3 and 15 at level 4, right? So this class seems to be split into those who are achieving in mathematics and those who are not. Now I'm going to move to the next slide. And in this next slide, as you can see, it's cut out here. It's a pretty long report. So in the next slide, you will see here from this line here, it then continues where we left off. And then you can see for level 7, how many learners we are having there for mathematics. I sort of cut it out a little bit there, but there seems to be a number there as well. Then we see a column there that talks about the pass percentage, which is literally the number of learners who have passed the subject. And as you can see here, for example, for English home language, 93% of those learners have passed, and which is great. And then we've got an even more revealing number here, which speaks to the depth of the understanding that came with that pass from those learners. We can see here that only 22% of learners were able to pass above 50%. In fact, if I can take another good example here, if I just pick on accounting here, the first line, although every learner passed accounting, as we can see there, 100% pass rate, only 38%, roughly a third of them were able to achieve above 50%, right? And with the average percentage or the average symbol being put there as 51. So this one here, the pass percentage, I'm going to want us to pay attention to that one, because this is the one that's going to inform the next decision. Let's just say we are looking at our subjects in our grade, and we are seeing there, for example, for grade 10 mathematics, we're seeing that only 25% of learners were able to pass, right? We can actually use that insight to actually say to ourselves, why? Why is it that we have such a low number of learners achieving in that subject, right? Now, of course, there's a lot of information that's available here. If you notice, if you're printing this from a district level, you're going to have a lot of schools, and then you're going to have all the grades in those schools, and you're going to have a different subject for all of those grades. That's really quite a lot of information. So we might want to filter out a little bit, which is just a fancy way of saying we want to pick and choose what is it that we want to be able to see. So let's just say I just want to see for grade 10. I just want to see the results just for grade 10. for mathematics. Those are the only things that I want to see. In fact, I even want to go further and say, I actually want to see for one school, right? I want to take one school, and in that school, I want to see only grade 10, and then I only want to see the results for mathematics. If I want to do that, that's where filtering will come in. And if I can just remind us for the steps to filtering, step number 1, and by the way, let me just interrupt myself here for a second. When you download the report, it downloads itself as something called a read-only file. So you won't be able to edit it until you give that permission. So after you download the report and you open it, the first thing you're probably going to have to do is say allow editing. There's a button at the top that will say allow editing. And once you've clicked that, it's only then you'll be allowed to add the filters. So step number 1, you highlight the topmost row as demonstrated below. So the row that has the labels or the descriptions, you're going to put your cursor there on number 2. It's going to highlight the whole thing. And then from then on, you go to step number 2, which is to click on data here on the ribbon that's at the top of your Excel. And then when you press on data, lots of information or other options and tools are available here. The one that we are looking for is is represented by the filter icon. If you click on that, then you are then saying, I want to filter using the information on this top row. And you will know that you have done it correctly if you're seeing these arrows here. These arrows here are saying to us, look, there's a filter that's been put here, and you can order and select and filter the information that's on this sheet using that information or using those descriptions, right? Then, in the previous, and I encourage you to actually go to YouTube and watch that learner achievement session. There, I went into details on maybe 4 or 5 different ways we can be able to filter this report. But in this one, I'm just going to focus on the one that's going to speak to the analysis of the problem, all right? And that one is, of course, where we are looking for the pass percentage, right? So we're going to put something called a number filter on the pass percentage. Simply means we click on the pass percentage, go to number filter, then say greater than, right? That's an example there. And here my example says 60, but we can also say less than. We can say less than and say those schools that have had, or rather, those schools that have had a grade pass that is below a certain amount, maybe we can say 40%. All those schools that have had a pass percentage of 40%, I want to see those schools. And I can also do that using the number filtering. Then I know I'm looking at schools that are achieving at below the target that I've set, right? So I can decide to do that, see a greater than, or I can say less than, as you can see from this different slide here, which is what I was talking about. And I can not only just do that on pass, which talks to the number of learners, which talks to the quantity. I can also use it to, dig deep and see the information as far as the quality. And as I've said to you, the percentage above 50% and the average pass percentage or the average percentage, those two are starting to speak to quality. But for my example today, the one that I targeted is actually the pass percentage, because we want a number of learners to pass, number 1, and then we want to work on the quality of that pass, at least to me, seems to be a logical process, right? And of course, from that information, we haven't done our job of analysis until we've put our findings into a table. And as you can see from this table, I've named it there that, look, this table represents schools and the mathematics for grade 10. And I'm putting the schools here, the average percentage, which is the number of learners, or rather the symbol that we're seeing. And then we're also seeing the pass percentage, which is the number of learners that have passed. So I'm just going to pick on the first school here. And if you are not at a provincial or at a district level, you can always still do this kind of analysis. But instead of having schools here, you will have grades instead of schools, for example, right? And then you can say to yourself, why is it the pass percentage? Why is it only 25% of learners passing mathematics in grade 10? And in the previous session that we had for learner achievement, we get some results there. There was low second paper results. Maybe learners were not prepared for the second paper, but this is called a qualitative way of putting together reasons, and it's not always the best way to go about. Remember, we are data-driven districts. We want data, or as much data as possible, available to influence the decision. So how do I do a data-driven approach to coming up with the reason here? And this is what the next slides are going to be about. Enter the root cause analysis technique. So instead of doing like what we did here, where we just guessed because we are experts in the field, let's now take a data-driven approach to analyzing what the causes can be. And as you can see here, root cause analysis, we are getting into that topic now. And, maybe the best way to talk to you about how do you actually put together a root cause analysis is to actually put it in steps, right? So here are the steps. Step number one is that you create the problem statement, which is basically you are naming the problem. I remember a lecturer who once said, if a problem is if a problem is defined, just by defining the problem, you've already solved it half. And the problem that we're having here is we're having a mathematics low pass rate, right? Or low pass percentage. And then the next thing we want to discuss to ourselves is what is this doing? Having mathematics, having a low pass rate, what is this doing? And here are some of the effects. First of all, a high progression rate. Mathematics is one of the subjects that learn is compulsory. So if learners are failing it, they're already one subject away from failing. And if they're failing, it puts us in a place where if they fail multiple times, we have to push them forward to the next phase, with or without the learning gaps addressed, right? So number two, low learner attrition. And what I meant there is that instead of learners, moving from grade to grade, certain learners get stuck in certain grades. Usually the exiting grade, we're seeing a lot of learners, numbers swelling up, and we know what that does to the learner ratio, the teacher to learner ratio. And of course, we start to seeing overage learners because they had to repeat certain phases because they were not passing two subjects, right? And of course, which leads to dropouts. So these are some of the effects that my colleague and I brainstormed around this problem. We don't, and I do want to say at this point, I don't mean to have anything that we're saying at this point to be a prescription to say, do this at your school. We're simply using this as an example on how you might approach in your school, how you take care of these issues. Now that you have defined the problem and you have set out the effects there, now we want to find out what are the causes. We want to be like 5-year-olds, who keep asking why, why is this, why do cars use petrol? Oh no, because the engine needs energy. Why does it need energy? Because energy makes things to move. Why do we need things to move? Because we need to go to A to B in the quickest amount of time possible. You want to be like a 5-year-old in that way because they keep asking why. If you answer something, they give you a why afterwards. And those is where we're going to find our causes from. But before we do that, we actually want to, there's actually typical categories the causes fall under, and we recommend that you actually write the categories that the causes normally come from. And causes normally come from people, materials, environment, methods, and equipment. And of course, we allow one last place here for any other causes that don't fall into that category. So that's step number two. After you've put the typical categories and causes, you then draw a line, and you draw a line to those categories, and then you make the lines. And as you can see, it starts to look like a fishbone, and probably why it gets its name, the fishbone method. Then you're going to go to each category one by one and input the causes. So you'll be asking yourself, who are the people that are involved directly or indirectly in this mathematical low pass rate? The brainstorm might reveal that the parents' involvement. I know in my own house, my son and his mother, they're always arguing back and forth because they're in rotation. But on those days, there's no rotation. He wants to be on his Wi-Fi. He wants to be watching stuff. There's always a fight to say, have you done your homework yet? I can imagine in homes where the parent involvement is not that strong, you're not going to see those learners look at their books. So what's the level of parent involvement in this? Is that a potential cause? Educator teaching styles. And I want to, at this point, make it very clear that I am a huge supporter and admirer of educators. I never want to point fingers at educators in any way. However, it's possible that there's a teaching style that an educator employs that works well for some learners but doesn't work well for some learners. As we know, some learners, they learn by seeing, some learn by hearing better, and some learn better by being involved and actually using their hands with stuff. So is it possible that the teaching style is foreign to this educator who maybe prefers to hear the issues instead of reading them themselves, right? The learners themselves as well, which ties into the teaching style. Can the learners study? Even myself as an adult, I've had to go to school recently, and it just came to me that I don't know how to study. The first thing that I had to do was to learn how to study, and to learn how to filter, to learn how to highlight what's important. So it could be the learning style as well that is at play here. So this is an example of some causes that are under people. So you would go through each and every one of them. You'd go to materials, the textbooks. Do learners actually have textbooks? The internet, is our internet reliable, and can learners actually access the internet and Google some of the items that they're struggling with and watch maybe a different video that explains things in a different way that they can understand? What about environment? Is there bullying? Is there an inability to get to work to get to school because of service level protests, as I'm seeing even in my area today? Uh, and in certain areas, these things happen more often than not. I spoke about parents. Is it possible that these learners are coming from child-headed households, or are raised by grandma, and grandma cannot be involved in trigonometry because grandma doesn't understand trigonometry, etc.? So you'll go through all of the methods, equipments one by one. And I've put here other gaps in content from previous grades that can definitely be a cause as to why they're failing in grade 10. If they don't know how to factorize, they don't know how to multiply, then you're finding yourself, you're going to find them failing in grade 10 because they don't have the gaps that they're missing from grade 8 and grade 9. So those are some of the causes there. And once you've input causes into each category, of course, then you now take all those causes that you're able to come up with and you create full solutions for them. You'll need experts in the room. You'll need your SMT in the room. You'll need other colleagues to brainstorm what are some of the possible solutions for each of these issues. And then after putting together the solutions, you then prioritize and say, for our school or for our province or for our district, which of this problem is affecting the results higher than the other. In one school, yes, you might find that schools are overcrowded and educators are having an issue, but maybe in your school that's not the issue. Maybe in your school you actually don't have textbooks, and hence learners haven't been able to get to that part. And I've also added here methods, and one of the methods I've added is class rotation. What is class rotation doing? Of course, it means already there's 50% of the time dedicated to learning. How do we maximize that time? And how do we make sure that when learners are not in the classroom, they're still learning, even though they're in a rotation period, so that learning doesn't only happen when they're in school? And of course, once you've created those solutions and you've prioritized them, you then put them in an action plan. Here's an example of an action plan that I've put here. This is by no means the end all of all action plans. There's other different methods. I've heard other colleagues talk about RAG, where the solutions are put in a RAG, red, amber, green, to say this is whatever is very, very pertinent is put as red. Whatever has consequences but not immediately is marked as yellow, and whatever it's a nice to do is marked as green. That's another way you can put things. So I just present this one as a simple example on an action plan. And of course, If you are above school level, you have the schools here, right? Let me start actually at the top, the action plan. You can say the action plan for mathematics in grade 10. That's what the inside table I've put together. Based on your inside table or the problem that you've identified, action plan for grade 10, a low pass percentage, right? You can have the schools here, but if you're in a school level, you can have grades here instead of having the school. That's also fine. Or you can just focus on the phase. It's really up to you. Don't be thrown away and say school here and think, oh, okay, this is just for district officials. No, you can tailor this for your context. What are the causes? So you put all these causes that we have found from the exercise, from the root cause analysis. Then we then brainstorm some solutions. What some of the things that we haven't tried before that we can try now, or in fact, you don't even have to be original. What is happening in school A? School A that is passing well, what are they doing over there to take care of this problem? And then you can put the action steps one by one, and they have to be smart. In other words, they need to be, specific. They need to be measurable. They need to be. I believe A is it's running from my mind now what A is. I'm going to remember in a moment, right? They need to be relevant. It means it needs to be something that can be done in the school, and they need to be time bound. And I think T is very, very important to say how many minutes, how many hours, how many days, how long will it take for us to be able to do the solution, and tie it to a person who's going to be responsible for this thing, and the date, the due date for this thing, and how far is the completion rate there, right? And here's an example of some work that we have done. Here's an example. And again, colleagues, we want to make very clear that IK and I are not education specifics. We are not education professionals. We are data professionals working in an education space. So we leave to you to come up with some of these ideas that we've put here. This is ideas that people who know nothing in education have put together, but you will sit with your SMT who are experts in education, and you will brainstorm some of the solutions. For example, the one we've put for parents who are not involved, maybe a WhatsApp or email reminder letting parents know when there's homework, letting parents know when learners are not doing their homework. Because even me recently, I looked at my son's report. He didn't do very well, but it was at the end of the term. It was too late for us to be these strict parents now that are cutting everything. What if we found out like on week 1 that he didn't do his homework, or he didn't perform well in his homework? If we had put some of that discipline earlier on, by the time the report comes, because by the time the report is here, it's too late. Might not be too late for the year, but definitely too late for that term. So it would be nice if we were reminded a little bit that he's doing well. He's not doing well. His marks are not doing so great, and for us to actually be able to have access to that. One of my other children's school, they actually have a system in their school. I can actually go in there and see how well he's doing. Like I said again, the R in the SMART, is it relevant to us? That might not be possible and relevant for us, right? Gaps in the content, maybe some Saturday school and math camps can be solution, action steps, and who the person we are putting to be a part of that. Again, it's worth repeating to say, I'm not making any suggestions for you to do in your own schools. This is going to be you who put together this action plan. I'm here to simply guide us to say there is a root cause analysis that works fantastically well. In fact, IK and I were part of training for project management. The most difficult school I've ever been in. I don't know about him, but even there, this root cause analysis comes up. It's used by engineers worldwide. It's used by scientists, it's used by all kinds of people. And the nice thing about it is that the solutions that are brought for these problems usually don't come back, or don't come back as worse as they did. You start coming up with an incremental solution to them, right? Right, colleagues, with that out of the way, I want to now open us up for questions and answers at this point. Maybe I can see there's some hand raised. I can see our chat is on the busy side. So let me just hand over to you, IK, to maybe just facilitate for us some of the questions that we were seeing while we were running the session.
Thank you so much, colleagues. I just believe that that has been well received because while Musa was speaking, I know that I think this period we're actually trying to look at subject performance, look at learner performance, and all that, and that is actually one of the things that we actually do. But most of the time, we end up looking at the problem statement. The problem statement is what has happened. Yes, we know that a school is underperforming. We know that a subject is underperforming. We know that a learner is underperforming. That is the problem statement. But what we forget is that there are other factors that contribute to the problem statement, that gives fuel to the problem statement. So what I'm actually going to add to what Musa is saying is that we need to actually understand, and that's when we receive the pack, we go back. You remember what I always preach is we always go back to the presentation. Try these things out. It's not good enough to just listen in and then we are done. But try this out, go through what he has just said. And if you have questions, you can engage with our help desk or you engage with your project managers in our respective provinces. But we try and find out what are the root causes of this problem. Maybe it's the style of teaching, as Musa has said. Maybe it might be the language that the learner is being taught, or maybe that educator is not actually well supported. So there are actually various reasons. But how do you get those reasons? Not by what your conscience is telling you, it's by data. And where do you get those data? Data captured on SSMs, data actually also uploaded to the dashboard. Now, another thing you might be asking yourself is that you are trying to use this data. How credible is this data? Was this data verified? Was there a moderation process in this school? So you see, it's a long chain of activity. But what we're talking about is root cause analysis. How do we get the problem, that fuels, that give rise to that problem statement that we have seen? And I am seeing some questions here, but not really, in line with what we're saying, talking about, the presentation, how it has been helpful, but they don't receive the pack, and I was asking the question if, they pre-registered for the session, because if you pre-registered on Zoom for the session, remember one of the prerequisites that you need to put is your email. Now, that email is the email that we, extract and send the pack to you. So if you did not pre-register, it's likely you would not receive the pack. If the link was sent to you, it's likely you will not receive the pack. So I would employ and I would appeal to everyone to please pre-register. You can get the link from our DDD dashboard website. You can pre-register for that. I'm just going to read a couple of this to you, Musa. Dr. Selgiwell, sorry, Mokoba, sorry, I did not pronounce it well. He says, excellent presentation. I am more assisted by Mr. Musa of how to filter and dig deeper to the problem within a school or subject. Musa, I'm not seeing any more questions. Colleagues, one thing I always do is I would like you to, say something, and one is maybe on the chat say, it's well understood, because if I don't get any questions when I facilitate or when a facilitation is being done, it's either two ways. One is it is well understood. The facilitator did an awesome job, so there's nothing to add, nothing to remove. Or, I am not sure, but I'm also shy. I don't want to say anything. So you can use the chat box and say what you want to say there. Okay, we're getting comments from Jackie. Jackie, it's good to have you here. Jackie says, good day, always well said. Awesome. Thank you so much, Jackie.
Thank you so much, Jackie.
Engage the chat box so we know how you feel, about the session. And, I would really employ us to go back and actually, listen to this again and use it, doing our analysis. Like Musa said, we invited the curriculum, second level, and also the school level. This process is applicable, well applicable to these three levels. There's a hand up, and I'm going to give that person access to speak. Magwana, please, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Good day, Ike and Musa. Thank you very much for your presentation. I think this will assist us a lot in managing these challenges we face every day. There are so many challenges that we have in our schools. So this will help us to manage them. So thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. There's something also why I'm still actually waiting for people to speak up. There's something that came up from a session that I actually conducted earlier today. One of the attendees were saying, while I was showing them the dashboard, and they're actually curriculum managers, they were saying that, based on what they have seen, this will reduce the verbal discussion that they have with their superiors, when they want to request for resources. And why would they do when you want to request for resources, you don't actually tell them, oh, this is the problem. You show them the data. You use this root cause analysis. The data has shown you that there is it's either high people not coming, high absenteeism, or it's low performance. Now that is the problem state. Now, based on the data again, and with the help of what Musa has spoken to us, which is the root cause analysis, we are able to get or flesh out those factors contributing to that. Now, when you go to your senior managers, you don't speak, you show them your findings. You actually show them your findings. And the dashboard, they all have access. So while you're speaking to them, they are looking at the data. You are showing them what the data is saying, and you are saying, this is where I got my request. Now, this is why I need more resources. And the lady was saying, this would make them get more money trying to, create intervention. And I was laughing. But the message out of that is that we are speaking the same language. It is data, right? I'm going to take the time out to also read this example, the comment also. Dr. Mokaba said, "They are perfect attempt in pronouncing my first name. I will join the next session again to be presented in future." Thank you so much. Apologies again. Thank you so much, sir. Cecilia says, "I always enjoy your workshops. Unfortunately, I could not be here at the beginning today. We'll look at the video." Thank you so much. That is the way to go, Cecilia. Norma Lady says, "The presentation has been excellent. Thanks. It will assist us in digging deeper and not be deceived by the high pass percentage, even though the learners are performing at low levels 2 and 3. That's as in, I would not agree more to you. Spot on, Norma Lady. We should not be covered up by the high performance. There are actually support that is needed. So the root cause is something, the root cause analysis is something that would help us to dig deep and not be carried away with what we see in front of us. Musa, I think that is the comments that I have here. And fair enough, a couple of majority of them are happy with the presentation. So silence, Musa, doesn't mean they don't understand. Silence means you did a great job. Thank you so much.
They're chewing, IK. They're chewing the consequences of what we just said. That's how I accept it. Thank you so much, IK, for that very, very valuable input there. Colleagues, I also just want to alert us that we have launched the polls and they're already underway. There are about 61% of us who've already participated. If you're not seeing that poll, colleagues, you could just, if you're on a laptop, if you just move your mouse around, you'll see the bar for the Zoom will appear, and you want to click on the polls button there. If you're on your phone, you might have to touch it for that poll to appear. Again, if you're not seeing it, please, colleagues, take care of that poll by answering it. Very simple questions, multiple choice. It is also anonymous, so IK and I won't be able to know who said what about us, but we do encourage you to be honest, but it allows us to actually bring data to say, look, these webinars are good. Please continue giving us the finances to keep making them, because look at the reaction that we are getting. Look at the need that we are meeting. So if you're not answering to it, it's almost as if we won't have evidence to go back to say these are good sessions and they're helping our schools, our curriculum, and our provincial level colleagues, right? So thank you for taking part in those. Nothing else to add on my side. I made better time today than I did yesterday. But that's fine. That means we'll leave a little earlier. No problem with that. So colleagues, do want to say, please look out for this recording, the slides, and in those slides, please take the example that we have put there of the action plan and of the cause and effect diagram, as IK has already labeled to say, colleagues, let it not just be something that we watch. Somehow, some way in your work, try to test, try to do this exercise of the root cause analysis. Go to the school achievement report, look for problems there that you can find, that you can put in a problem statement and investigate causes for. Let it not just be we are watching, let us not just be hearers of this word, but let us be doers also. And at this point, I want to actually thank IK for his support today. And thank you, our audience, for coming. We know how busy it is and how extremely busy it is at the moment in the education sector. But you found the time to be with us even for an hour to talk about what the dashboard can do. We really hope it has added value to you. We will definitely see you in the next one. If you are not getting the emails, feel free to go to our website, the dashboard itself, www.dbedashboard.co.za, and register there for the next one, even if you don't get that invite. And as you can see from the screen, we have our colleagues and our team on the ground who are eagerly looking forward to hear from you, to support you in any way with regards to the dashboard or as much as they can around education. And as you can see, we've got our helpline there. I noticed from yesterday's and previous attendance registers, a lot of us filled in to say we don't have the login to the dashboard. If you don't have access to the dashboard, I strongly encourage you to shoot us an email to help@dbedashboard.co.za. You can even call us on our number. It's as you can see it on the screen, 060-997-2925. IK, what are your final parting words?
Thank you so much. I will start by reading the last word that Dr. Mokoye said. He said, precisely, you sharpened my mind on the fishbone method again. Stay blessed. Thank you so much, Doc. And
Wonderful.
Thank you so much, everyone. Musa, thank you so much. Musa just sounded like a pastor, and he actually just not just hearing this message, the facilitation, it is by doing it. So not just hearing it, we have to start doing it. Always good to be here. Thank you so much, colleagues. Please note that we are going to be here again next week.
Yes.
Same platform, same time, a fresh new topic. Ms. Magwana said something here. He says, good day to our presenters and colleagues. There are many factors that affect teaching and learning. For example, at our school, there is severe shortage of furniture, which may be the root cause of absenteeism. You see, people are thinking deep. They are using the root cause already. Absenteeism is the problem statement. One of the factors that contributes to that is shortage of furniture. Thank you so much. Spread the word. I hope to see you all here next week, same time, same platform. Please share the link also if there's any of your colleague friends that needs to be here. Colleagues, I want to say have a blessed week. Always adhere to the COVID protocols, and I'll see you bright and early next week, Thursday, Friday. On my side, thank you so much and have a blessed week.